When I started out playing guitar, one of my favorite albums was Ozzy's tribute album with Randy Rhoads. I've talked about that album in the past, and it's just, yeah, it's a thing. It's so great. And for a long time, I just thought that, Ozzy was in Sabbath, and then he did this thing with Randy Rhoads, and then, this beardy guy called Zakk Wylde came along, and at the time, it seemed like every guitar magazine, I'm talking early 2000s, they just oscillated between having Mark Tremonti, Zakk, Dimebag, and Hendrix on the cover. That was like every guitar magazine. They would just cycle through those guys. And so obviously, I got into Zakk and really liked a lot of his stuff. And I think it was like Guitar One Mag or something like that. This is years ago. Had an article talking about Ozzy's guitar players, talking about Joe Holmes and talking about the gigs he did with Brad Gillis and Bernie Tormé and, of course, Jake E. Lee. And I was like, ooh, Jake E. Lee, who's this guy? He looks cool. He's playing a white Charvel and he's got this big thing of hair. I should go and listen to some of this stuff. And couldn't find any of those albums. So as I did at the time, went to Kazaa or LimeWire and I downloaded Bark at the Moon. And I loved it. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is kind of like slightly faster, shreddier Aussie stuff. And I really fell in love with that. Fell in love with Jake's guitar sound and his whole style. And I tried to teach myself Bark at the Moon by using a transcription that was in that magazine, whether it was Guitar One or Guitar Player. And essentially, whoever transcribed it from memory, it was all just like power chords on the A and the D string, this kind of thing. When you're like a 14 or 15-year-old guitar player, that's probably good enough because your mates can go, oh, dude, have you heard Bark at the Moon? And you're like, have I? And for a long time, I just assumed that was the way it was played. I didn't think about it any more than that because I just jam on the riff when I felt like it and it was kind of fun. And then a few years ago, I saw a video that was put up where it's Jake E. Lee at a clinic and he breaks down how he plays a riff and my eyes were like, whoa, what? I had no idea this riff was so complex. And obviously you can go and watch that video, and of course you can go and watch Ben Eller's video on how to play Bark at the Moon. But trying to play those voicings is like, that's just ridiculous. Like, Jake E. Lee is a freak of nature. These voicings, man, I don't know why he would play this, but he did, and it sounds pretty rad. As you can see, I'm really good at playing it like Jake. And also there's like a second variation on that where I think he plays like, a little F triad and a D minor triad or something like that. Like I said, go and watch Ben's video about this because he's the man and he breaks it down really well. But these videos aren't about how to play it exactly the same way. I want to give you guys a way that you can play it, which is like close enough to impress all your mates, or close enough if you want to take it and play it live with a band. So let me get in a little closer here for you guys. Hopefully the light balance doesn't totally blow out. Essentially, these chords here, what Jake is playing are some dyads. So he's playing what is that? A C note and an F note together. So that's an inverted F5, and then he's dropping the C down to a B, which gives you this cool tritone thing. So we can revoice that. The way that I like to revoice it is you've got this, if you're playing the chords, you've got A5, G5, and you've got F5 down here. So I'd play F5, and then I would drop the middle note, the 5th. So I've got the 3rd fret on the D string, the 5th fret on the G string, and the 6th fret there on the humble B string, and I just dropped this note here on the G string from the 5th down to the 4th. So you get this. Then, holding those two notes in place, we're going to move this note up to a G, which is a note that we grab here when we go. And then to finish it off, you can still play this little tritone thing here on the 9th fret on the D and the 10th fret on the G. So instead of this, you have this. And it pretty much sounds the same. I'll try to play it for you guys. And that is the vibe there. You can use a very similar approach for the second part of the riff, you know, where he plays the, again, go and watch Ben's video, try and learn it, and then you can adapt it to this, where he plays this. And that part of the riff, to me, I mean, it's cool, but it's not entirely necessary. Like, you could just play the first part of the riff the way I'm playing it, and nobody's going to complain too much. So, yeah, I will slow that down for you guys right at the end of the video with some close-ups, because some of you have requested that in the past, but that lets you get away with it. And that, to me, makes a lot of sense, because, like I said, you've got A5, G5, F5, and you just kind of goofing around with the F5, playing some cool stuff, which at the end of the day is what we want. It should be more about the attitude and the energy of the song, and not like a cold, clinical, scientific exercise. So there's that, but there's the other part of the song which I absolutely love, and taken me so long to try to learn how to play. It's that like ending sequence he does at the end of the solo. And the way Jake plays it is, again, it's just freakazoid stuff. So he plays it, the first part's pretty straightforward. What the hell is happening there? It's a really cool little sequence. Essentially what he's doing, the notes on the G string are moving down from A to G to F to E. So you have this descending low note, which is pretty cool. It's almost like a Baroque inspired thing, almost like a counterpoint pedal tone sort of thing. Counterpoint pedal tone? Yeah, I know lots about Baroque music too. Anyway, buzzwords aside, trying to play that at speed is just insanity, right? So this is how I play it. I just move these notes up on to the top E string so we can play. You're pulling off from 8 to 7, and then you're hitting 10 on the B string. That's cool. Then we're going to play a G major arpeggio, so 10-7 on the E and 8 on the B. So far, so good. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, but it's still easier than playing it Jake's way to me. You're going to essentially outline an F major 7 arpeggio, I guess, and it's going to be 12 to 8 on the high E string, and then 10 on the G string, so you skip a string. So that's pretty cool. It's actually not that hard to play either if you can play the first two parts. And then we're going to move it down to this thing, which I guess is like an E dominant 7 arpeggio, where we're going to pull off from 10 to 7 on the high E, and we're going to hit 9 on the G. Something like that. I'll slow it down at the end for you guys. But that makes it a lot more straightforward. Now, in the other videos that I've done in this How Not to Play series, I've talked about how figuring things like this out and adapting them to the way I play has inspired me to write other things. So this particular lick, there's actually this lick and the thing that Marty Friedman plays in Symphony of Destruction. Something like that anyway. I adapted to the Ragdoll song Playing God, so the second half of the solo goes like this. Which is pretty cool. It's essentially, again, it's just like a cool sequence, sort of based around some arpeggios, very similar to what Marty does, but at the same time, it's got that like Jake thing. I was vibing on the solo from Bark at the Moon at the time, so that like directly inspired me to go, yeah, I'll kind of borrow that rhythm, and I'll borrow some of those really big stretches in there, like at the start. I mean, if I was really clever and I was really copping Jake's vibe there, I would have gone... Actually, that's way better. I might start playing that live. Anyway, I'm going to slow all this stuff down at the end for you guys in a close-up. If you've got any other songs that you want me to show you guys how to butcher, or at least adapt to your own style, let me know. But lots of you did ask for Bark at the Moon, and that's how I play it my way. If you've got different ways that you play it, chime in, because you know, this whole guitar thing, it's meant to be like a community thing and a collective thing, and that's the nice thing about music, is you might play something one way, someone might play it a totally different way, and it might inspire you to do something new, and it might inspire them to do something new. So yeah, signing off. Cheers.